Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's Real Estate Investor webinar brought to you by I Love Real Estate and Knowledge Source. My name is Dennis Wong and I'm from Real Estate Investor and Portfolio Manager here. And today we're going to take you through the Real Estate Investor platform, showing you how you can utilize the tools to help you build and manage your property portfolios, focusing specifically on the subdivision strategy. I will be joined today by Justin Hams, who has great experience in finding and doing analysis around subdivision deals, so he'll jump on in a little bit later this morning. So welcome everyone, we've just started, so thank you for tuning in this morning. The webinar will go for about an hour and there'll be plenty of time for questions at the end. So if you do have anything that you want to ask or you've seen anything that you want to just question, just feel free to type that into the question section of the control panel. That'll be all captured and Justin and myself will go through them all at the end. So look, whether you're a first-time investor or you're an experienced one, hopefully you're going to pick up a few tips and tricks and learn along the way today. And so look, just to ensure that you get the best experience today from an audio point of view, if you're running any programs in the background, I do recommend that you turn off things like Outlook, Skype, or any downloads that you're doing. Even Dropbox, if it's syncing large files, it can actually affect the performance. So if you turn that off, you'll generally have faster internet and you'll be able to get better quality audio as well. Like I said, so my name is Dennis Wong. I've been here for nearly 3 years now, but I've been investing for the past 10 years. I've got experience in purchasing cash flow positive properties and also some experience in renovating. And I'll be joined by Justin Hams, who's a portfolio manager here at Real Estate Investor as well. He's been investing for over 20 years, plenty of experience in subdivisions, very, very knowledgeable. So do take advantage if you do have any questions today, because I'm sure he'll be able to answer it. If not, definitely be able to find out. So for those that perhaps are tuning into the first Real Estate Investor webinar with us, just a bit of background. We're a property investor focused company and we've been around since 2006. So we had our 10-year anniversary last year, and the whole purpose of our tools is to help simplify real estate investment. Allows you to focus on the numbers and try to take the emotion out of any purchase, because at the end of the day, it's all about getting a financial return and allowing you to then continue building your portfolio. We've currently got over 240,000 investor members utilizing our free membership area, where you've got access to suburb reports, news, and other educational resources. And we've got a little bit around over 2,800 current members utilizing our platform. Now, we are a publicly listed company on the ASX. REV is our code, and we've got a very strong and focused board as well with a lot of experience. We have Simon Baker, who's our chairman, who was the former CEO of realestate.com.au, and the current CEO of Domain, Anthony Catalano. Now, we don't do this all on our own. We obviously partner with I Love Real Estate and Knowledge Source. So we have a lot of students that obviously go through the educational courses and then put it into practice utilizing our tools. And then we do also have partnerships with people like Domain, APM Pricefinder, where we get all our sales information from, suburb stats. From a managing point of view of your portfolio, we partner with Xero, an online accounting platform. And easy to use. It's been designed specifically for that, for I guess for people without an accounting background, but this essentially helps you track your cash flow and expenses for any of your investment properties, and that does integrate through into our platform. And then we also provide data to your investment property magazine as well. So look, essentially our mission is to provide property investors around the world with the best advice, guidance, products and services to enable them to create wealth through property investment. And so hopefully after you see our tools today in action, that you'll be able to see the value and the benefits that it can provide to you to allow you to achieve those goals. So Real Estate Investor gives you essentially everything in terms of what's involved in a property purchase. So everything from the searching stage, where you're looking and identifying properties that meet your buying and financial criteria, and strategy. So instead of using free sites and spending a lot of time finding out which one is a possible opportunity, you can spend more time analyzing those opportunities from the start. We then have tools to allow you to analyze, make sure you can work out what the property is really worth today, what's it potentially worth post your strategy. So if you're looking at renovating or subdividing, what do properties valued at on smaller blocks or with higher renovation quality? And then you obviously go through the acquire stage, where you go through either a private treaty, negotiate with the agent, or go to an auction. Then hopefully from that point you've acquired a property, and Portfolio Tracker is where you can then manage your property. So, buy, hold and forget isn't a successful strategy, and like any business, you want to treat property investing like that as well. So tracking is all about making sure that it's still performing as is, and your property managers are working for you and making sure they're increasing rents in line with market values. And then we have accounting. So when it comes to tax time, that's where the Xero accounting system can help make reporting so much easier, save you a lot of time, save you having to scan and email or physically take in all your invoices and statements to your accountant. So look, we'll ask a couple of questions just to get an idea on the audience that we have today, and obviously just gives you an indication on, the level of, or where investors are in terms of level, and whether they're starting or they're an experienced one. So I'll share the result of the audience as well. So I'm just going to launch it on screen. So if you don't mind just letting us know, when you're purchasing next. That will give us an idea where you're actively looking right now. Perhaps you're just starting your feasibilities and getting structures in place. You're learning. It just gives us an idea where people are at. So if you just click on screen, that'll be greatly appreciated. I'll just keep that open for a few more seconds. So we've got about 50% voting. So thank you very much for your participation. All right, so I'll just close that off, guys. So thank you very much. Really appreciate that. And we'll share that with the audience. So we got 30% today of you today that are looking at investment property within the next 3 months, 27% 3 to 6, and then we got a smaller percentage 6 to 12 months. So perhaps you're just looking to get things in place, or you already have property, you're waiting for some extra savings or some equity to build up, and you've got about a quarter of you guys that don't have immediate plans to acquire property. So look, there is a big mix. There's plenty of people in the same situation as you. So hopefully today you guys all learn and pick up a few things that can help you along the way. Just a quick note as well: this webinar is being recorded, so you will be able to access this at a later date. All right, so I'm just going to hide that, and let's keep kicking on. All right, so look, for those that perhaps don't have any immediate plans, or you're not looking to start right now, setting some achievable goals is going to be really, really important. And I just want to talk quickly just about, setting SMART goals. Having something very specific, measurable as well, is going to allow you to really focus and make it more likely that you're going to be able to achieve what you set out to that you want to do. Having a very generic goal of, buying 10 properties are going to bring in $10 million, it's going to be hard to achieve. You need to break it down, be more specific, make it measurable, make sure that it's achievable and realistic, and also set a time for yourself too, because then if you write that all down, you can then obviously tick that off as you go, and you know exactly where you are, and everything is outlined in front of you. And if you don't have that set in place, have a think about what is your goal. And look, if you're watching the webinar today, then hopefully it's involving buying a property, because if it's not, then you're probably at the wrong webinar. But this is hopefully going to give you some ideas on, okay, well, maybe I need to refine my current goals to make it a little bit more achievable. Some questions just to ask, how are you going to plan to achieve this goal? Is it through educational courses? Is it using these tools? Is it doing it through a partner that's had some more experience? Is it reasonable to expect you can complete the goal? Do you have the time? And do you have the know-how? And look, if the answer was no to any of those questions, that's okay. It's about just understanding and being aware of that, and then being able to overcome that. So once you've got some goals in place, start at the end, or start at the end to then set some specific goals. Identify where you are now, where do you want to go, and then you can work backwards and set up smaller goals to be able to finally get to that end goal of being able to have sufficient passive income coming in, so you can decide that you can give up your day job and retire, or focus on property investing full time. Now, one of the number one reasons that Justin and I both come across, and where most people fail is that they don't do the last step, which is actually start. You know, they can have as many goals as they've got goals all set out. Everything's detailed. They've done educational courses. They've read up on a lot of different topics and spoken to a lot of people, but they just don't start. And you may have heard of the term, analysis paralysis. So, no investment's ever going to be 100% guaranteed, but if you do the required research and do your numbers and you focus on that and take the emotion out, that will reduce your risk significantly, and you should have a successful property investing journey. So just a couple of things just to keep in mind in this presentation, that we're really here just to show you, to demonstrate the tools today, how you can take it through that property cycle of searching, analysing, tracking, and we're going to cover a lot of things. There will be feasibility studies that we've done, but please don't take that as the 100% of what you need to do. There are other things that need to be considered as well. It is just general advice. Obviously, before you make any financial decisions, recommend that you seek financial advice from a professional. And look, there is plenty of great content that we provide, like I mentioned, with the free members area with checklists that you can download as well. All right, so what I might do is now introduce Justin Hams. He's going to take you through the subdivision strategy specifically and how that relates, how you can utilize the real estate investor tools to be able to find and do your analysis around it. So thank you, guys. I'll be back a little bit later, and I'll now hand it over to Justin.
Thank you, Dennis. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for attending this webinar on subdivisions today. As Dennis mentioned, my name is Justin Hams, and I specialise in the subdivision strategy here at Real Estate Investor. Today I'm going to take you through the tools of the actual system and give you a snapshot about how I come about the deals and how a lot of our clients that actually use our software get the outcomes as far as doing the due diligence and mitigating risk as far as the end state of the deals that we're looking at. All right, so as we're all got time poor these days, I'm going to get straight into it. You can see our dashboard at the front on the screen at present. So straight away, I'm just going to go in and go into the search itself. Now you can see we can go a myriad of different ways, as far as we can search via a postcode, we can search via an actual suburb, we can find a booming suburb and then look at the suburbs around it, so the sister suburbs. You most likely would have heard that term before, and then start drilling down to specifics. We can do kilometres out from it. As you can see, I've been quite specific because I know this area quite well and I know there's some good deals around this area. I wanted to be very specific in drilling down to a small content. Normally, you would be very broad in your search to start off with the tools, and you drill down, and as you're getting the actual results, you add your criteria, add another positive for what you might want each time to drill down to normally around about 50 to 75. In this instance, I've been so specific that it's going to give us a lot less results coming back, so I just wanted to state that beforehand. You see the price range here. You have the possibility to be able to take out any auctions or any properties that where the listings do not have a price. Now for us, the feasibility side doing subdivisions, it's important that we know a price where we're starting at, especially for the acquisition of the property. So for this reason, you see I put in a price range of $1. So this negates any auctions or listings coming up that don't have any price listed. You'll also see the keyword strategy of subdivide on the right-hand side. We have all the different strategies in here, and when we press one of these strategies included in our search criteria, it brings in keyword phrases. These keyword phrases are collected by the algorithms of the software, and any times these phrases come up within the listing material that an agent has put forward in his sales and marketing, then they pull it back into the actual results that we have. Now for this area too, you can see I've circled a land size of minimum 800. Now that being the case, anything below 800 in this area, we basically can't subdivide. Now whenever you're going to do your research for any properties, you always need to learn the lie of the land, so to speak. You need to go to the local council that you're looking within, and this is all online that you can do this, but you need to familiarise yourself with the planning policy of the particular council where you're searching. So I can go into that further later, but let's move on. Okay, you can see from the parameters what my searching was before. The actual system has gone through over 1.2 million listings and come up with 12 results. Now, as we talked about, this is very specific. However, imagine the time we have just saved. We physically could not go through that many listings to come up with this. So the time-saving part is invaluable for myself doing this full-time, and it will be invaluable for you guys as well once you start doing this for yourself. So you can see too, we've got the actual suburb itself being Marsden, the date that this listing was first listed. Now be aware too, you will and can have properties that will come up again with a later listing date, say a couple of weeks later. What that means is the agent has pulled the listing and most likely amended the price or changed the material within the listing details. So that being the case, it might come up as a new listing, so always be aware of that too. You can see at 114.8% of the median in the circle here, a lot of the time you would hear across the board when you're buying anything, don't buy above the median. And of course for a renovation, you want to be buying under the median to take into consideration the actual renovation costs to bring it up to be parable with the after sale price of the median. Those rules do not have the same emphasis on subdivisions. We've had deals in here with Dennis Logan and myself where we've looked at ones at 140, 150% of the median, and they're a bargain. Not because of what we're measuring them against, and in this instance, the median price for a 3-bedder in this area is $330,000. $379 for this one. Now, it could be that normally if we were just buying house upon house, this would be expensive, unless it had some type of features that gave it that warrant to be asking for more. At 115% for us to be able to use as an end use past this, it still can be a bargain. So let's go in and have a look at this further. Okay, so you can see the actual keywords that have been pulled from the subdivision strategy in this instance was the 995 square metre block. In other words, a larger size. And as we talked about earlier, we know we're looking for a minimum in this area of 800 square metre. So that being the case, this is the first tick in the box to say yes, via our criteria, we can subdivide it. Always be aware. There is no two subdivisions that are the same, and all we can do is keep researching and cross-checking as much information as possible to negate the possibility of things going south or haywire, or whatever term you want to use. So that's the first thing we're going to be looking at. When we come across to the resources side, this is where I personally spend a lot of time when I'm doing my researching, and one of the things I love about the tools. This is, some of these things are free and you can get this on the internet. However, the software engages with all these things and makes it easy to access and so on. So I'm not going from one screen to another, one program to another, and I can utilize this in consultation with my research of the software itself. Now, going into the Google Maps view and Street View, after I open the actual listing itself to make sure that the property is still available and that it's not under contract and it's still listed, because in high demand areas, we have properties like one that we were researching yesterday. It actually came on the market yesterday morning and it was gone by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And we had people, scouts out looking at it. By the time they'd looked at it, it was already gone. This is not the norm, of course, but going into the actual listing itself of what the ad is, it can help negate you wasting your time. So I go into, after I've done that, go into the Google Maps above. Now, of course, you're going to get a broader scope, but I've highlighted this for you guys to be able to see a lot easier. Obviously, I've magnified it, so it's much easier to see on your screen. What we do from above, we look for certain qualities that we want to have within the block. Now, as far as access, so we see on the side of the building here, depending on whether you want to keep the existing dwelling, this is very important. But if you don't, it's not so important. Then it comes down to what is the width or the frontage of the property. Now, if we're going to do a straight split down the block, down the middle, we need to know within this council, the zone and the precinct or ward that it sits within, plus any overlays, what is the minimum street frontage we can have. If we're going to be keeping this existing dwelling, we need to know what is the minimum thoroughfare or easement width between dwelling end wall and boundary line. Now, in this area, it's 4 metres. I know a few of these off by heart because I'm searching all the time, but you can always find this information in the actual council as far as whatever the property is going to be and so on. And I'm just going to flick back to that last screen just to show you quickly. There's another thing too. Whatever the software has got you in as far as suburb, town or whatever, the local council that's associated with it is already there for you to rock and roll and straight into it. Okay, so we've ascertained we've got good clear frontage as far as being able to get an easement in. You also need to be able to have either parking behind for the existing dwelling or in front. If you can't have any parking, then most likely the council will reject it because they want to know that the car can be, in their words or deemed, housed off the street. Now, this at 995, this area, we'll be looking at basically cutting it off in half here. Depending on the council too, this area where the actual easement will be can be taken into consideration for the minimum square meterage for the existing block, and then other councils will have it purely as an easement area where it does not get attached to either the front or the rear dwelling. So those minimums can be deal breakers as far as addressing and being in line with planning policies. So you need to learn those things for the particular house that you're looking at. Okay, from there, I go straight back, and if I've ascertained that, yes, I have an amount of room that will most likely be viable to get past as an easement, the house is in a good spot on the block for me to be able to put either a drive and a carport or another garage at the front or behind it, and still have the minimum rear square meterage required within the zone, within the precinct or ward, and the planning policy of the particular property I'm looking at, then I move forward. I want to go in here and go into recent planning applications. Now, what this does, these planning alerts, these are all over Australia. You can pretty much put any property in your target property and it will give you a 2 kilometre radius around your target property of every type of application that's gone into the council. So whatever we're doing, and in our case, subdivisions, we look for a precedence. We're looking as, of course, we're talking about within that 2 kilometre radius, so it's giving us another tick in the box if it's nice and close, but there's more to that which we'll talk about a bit further. But what we've done here, we've put our address in, we've ticked away. Now, I would suggest when you guys do this, then you would look at minimum 3 months since the application has been put in. It's no use looking at one in 1 or 2 weeks or so on because 99% of the time there will be no outcome. And we utilise this information for our precedence of outcome. So we can see here, I've gone in 1 into 2 lots. It's only 590 metres away from our target property. 4 months ago, we have a decision. The application has been approved. So that is a decision of saying, yes, this can be done. Then, depending on what council you're in and depending on the information and also state, because it does change from place to place, you can get in and see the plans. Now, if you've just seen a straight 1 into 2 lot subdivision, that's a tick. But we need to be aware that whatever the subdivision type is that we're doing, we need to get an approved application on that too. And what I mean by that is there can be a straight splitter when you're talking dead down the middle of the block. That is very different to what's called a battle axe. A battle axe goes through to the example we've gave before, where you'll have an easement and like an axe head shape for the rear block. They are not the same type of subdivision. They will have different parameters, basically because the Battle Axe does not have direct street frontage. So it brings in all these different rules. So that being the case, you need to be able to ascertain via searching further into the council records that the actual subdivision that you're looking to do and the ones that you find that are already approved, that they're the same. Okay, so I've gone back in. Now let's say that we have found our comparables, which those last two were in this instance. Now I want to go into the price finder part. This is one of the most powerful parts of the software itself, and where I do a lot of my research and comparables to be able to ascertain not just what we're starting with, but the end state, whether it is financially viable to do or not. So let's go into that. As you can see, we've put our target property into the actual report at the top. An important thing, and also a really good thing, you can do this state by state. A lot of the time, if you don't have the correct state up, then it will just go round and round in circles, and you'll probably scratch your head a few times until you work it out, as I did, that you're in the wrong state. Because once you start typing the property, a drop down will come in and recognise the property for the Valuer General's office, otherwise known as the Titles Office, and that is linked with Google Maps as well. So once we've had that drop down, which I have in this instance, go through to the next one. A few of you might be saying that's not a place I'd be buying with a street frontage like that. Obviously, we don't choose the photos that's coming up first. This is actually in the actual system itself. This is not a marketing shot. So of course there will be further photos of the property, but it's just the one that came up. You'll see up on the right hand side, this is where I spend most of my time measuring and comparing. This is the interactive map area of the software on Price Finder. This is brilliant to save us so much time in dealing with and assessing as whether something is possible or not, or worth researching further. Okay, so I've clicked on the interactive map, and what I'm looking for now, I'm looking for precedence. I'm looking in the same area as close as possible as what our target property is to do something that someone else has already done. We do not want to be the trailblazers. We do not want to be the first ones to do something in an area, because it will be much harder, it will take longer, and in due course, all of that means money. It will cost us money. That's why we do this, to make money and to increase our wealth. So it's great to get into an area where we can see some of the strategies that we want to use has already been done, but we don't want to be the first to do it. This being the case, you can see that the top circle at the right-hand side of the screen. Here is an actual size block that is the same size, nearly identically, as the one that we've got as our target block. This gives us an idea. Okay, within a close proximity, there is other people that have already done and been approved about what we want to do. The middle one is exactly the same, and it's also got that slight elongation to the road side of the block that the one that we're looking at. So it gives us another couple of ticks in the box. What we would do from here is we go into the council site that we talked about before, and we address these further as far as the information. Now, when I say as far as the information, we would match whatever our target property is, go into, it's most councils, it's called PD Online. In other words, property search or property details. There is a myriad of different names that they give it across different states, across different councils, different municipalities. So you just need to learn the actual lingo of the area which you're searching within. So we go in there, we'd already know our zone and our precinct for this area. For our property, if those other ones that we're using as comparables have the same zoning and the same precinct, that's another tick to say, yes, we should keep searching, because it's another little advantage to say, yep, we're along the right track of being able to do this. It isn't uncommon from the same block, even on a side street, to be different in a zone or precinct to the one dead opposite across the road. So be aware. Do not just take it as gospel, so to speak. that the one across the road that's exactly the same block, exactly the same looking house, even if it's a side street, not a main road, could be a totally different zone. So always check this. This is important. Now, this is within the tools, my favorite part out of anything. It's the measuring tool. I utilize this for a bit of an idea for easement widths. So we can just go in and do a double click from a single line. It's going to give me a meterage. Something else that you guys need to consider too within any type of council, the rules are different for boundaries too. The boundary perimeter will always be the same, but some councils will take it from dwelling outer wall to the fence. Others will take it, if let's say the eaves on this roof go out a metre, they will take it as straight line from the eave down to the ground, so that you might lose half a metre or a metre from there to the fence. You need to find out these things with each one that you do too. So we've got in our measuring tool here. What I do here, I've actually done the actual background to see what type of square meterage are we going to get, because that's the important part, because there will be minimum square meterages for rear blocks. No matter where you go, no matter where you're actually looking, it will always have a minimum. We want to know that we're above that minimum. In this area, normally we'd be looking at, or the council would prefer, the rear block to be 600 metres plus. However, if you have a clear easement like we do here, if you have the possibility to have off-street parking, like we would have the possibility to put a carport and everything here, and you can prove that a 500 to 500 rough split is applicable, and all those criteria that we talked about before, it is more likely than not to get through because it's common sense. Okay, so from there, I've measured my square meterage. It gives me actual widths and actual depths as well. This is handy too if we're not just going to subdivide, but if we're going to take the next step and do a development as well. What type of house footprints are we going to have? What type of minimums are we going to be able to work with, still addressing the council criteria of, let's say, fence boundary to rear a dwelling? So there's a whole other set of rules that we could talk about, but obviously we don't have time for that today. So I'll move on. Go into the council. As we spoke about before, you can get an invaluable amount of information for every city council. Some are incredibly easy to use and incredibly helpful. Others, you will need a pilot's license to find anything. So just be aware, depending on where you are and what council, there is a huge disparity between the helpfulness of the system or not. All right, so if we've gone into the Logan City Council, who I believe is a very progressive council because of the way they've set things up, it's very user-friendly. What I've done, I've gone into the actual zoning mapping of the area just to see what we talked about before, the zone and the precinct, because the zone and the precinct in this area will point to a part of the planning policy that will give you all the criterias for street frontages, minimum square footage, square meterage, and also any backdrafts from the actual street where, you know, you're not allowed to build within this certain amount, like we talked about before. You must have this many meters to the back fence. It will tell you everything that you need to do within here. So this is incredibly helpful. Okay, this is just, this hasn't got to do anything with our system, but I wanted to let you guys know this because I do utilize this a lot. This is a government incentive, dial before you dig, and it's basically to protect everybody. It protects the council and the state government's infrastructure, and it protects us as subdividers as well for going underground. This is a place where you can find everything as far as the utilities, what is in front of, behind, and going through your block. You must look at this if you want to do things safely. Obviously, if you're not going to go ahead and do any excavation, if it's purely for design, that's all well and good. However, we still need to know what runs below our property. If we don't know what runs below our property, we don't have a true indication of what the costs are going to be. And of course, we're never going to be able to accurately say the cost will be exactly this. But it gives us indications about where the costs roughly will be for sewage, water, electricity lines, telecommunications. All these things are actually in the vested interest of the utility suppliers to give you the information. It's all free. So I strongly suggest you need to get a login, but the same thing. All you need to do is have your own email address and create a password and accept the terms and conditions. I utilize this for every deal I do because knowing what's happening underground can be the difference in costs, whether a deal is worth going for or not, whether it's financially viable. All right, so I've done my little plug for Dollar for Your Dig. I don't receive any money from them, but that would be good, but we'll talk about that another time. Here we've got the actual map of a possibility that we're talking about. I've just done in very clear terms, very simplistic, where you can see our easement and our rear block and our front block, a possible cut that we can do for a subdivision. Now, we will always engage a town planner as far as the end state. I put together all these proposals. I do a lot of this for people as far as the system is concerned, utilising this myself. Now, using the tools, you can find out all this information, but I would always suggest you guys use town planners anyway. Okay, so now I want to find comparables. Now in this instant, we've got Marsden itself. So I'm just going to purely put in the suburb itself. So to find out what we're actually going against, because what we need to know is once we've done our split, what is the land going to be worth? We need to know the end state of our vacant block of land, what's that going to be worth after the subdivision, and also the smaller existing dwelling, if we're going to keep it, what's that going to be worth? Because those two end state costs are what our value is afterwards. We need to know once we've worked out all our cost of doing the subdivision, that will give us the difference between actual what we get back or the equity we've gained plus our costs, and it will show us how much we are going to make or the margin of what our deal is going to be. This is one of the things I love about the tools too. You can actually go and map out very specific places. Remember what we talked about before? From one side of the road to the other can be different zones, can be different precincts, so the rules are different. Within our little area here, this could be that this is the area where we know what we want to do is possible. These are the areas on the outside which don't. So if I've gone through here and I've just put vacant land, and as you can see, I've only done it over a 6-month period, and I go through, I've got it more specific there. What we've done here is the house as well, and I'm putting a minimum land size of 600. Now we know our front is roughly 400 plus about 100 for the easement, but I want to get back some comparables that are close, so I've given it a little bit more. So that being the case, we're going to have all houses with minimum lot sizes up to 600 within the same suburb, so we can compare it against our after subdivision costs. So we can see the new land size. Now this is, I've put into the tools just the 450 plus square meters. We know our new land size is a bit above that at 520, but it's still roughly within the ballpark. Now to be conservative, I've gone on the lower side and I've valued at our property, the land after the split at 210. As you can see, it goes from 204 through to 235. So that's just being conservative for our end figures. Okay, the house, the revaluation of the house under 500 square meters, so fairly close to what we're looking at, we've done at 315K. Now you can see down from the note that I put at the bottom, the reason why I have put it much lower than the others is because there's no direct comparables in this area for our dwelling type of this size block. So that being the case, I went quite conservative again. I've put it $35,000 to $80,000 less than the comparables. If we keep being conservative in our reevaluations and being fuller in our costs, we know if our bottom line at the end comes out as still being viable in doing, that this is generally our worst case scenario. The tools will help you work out all these costs by doing this. Okay, so the figures themselves. We've seen our purchase price at $370. A stamp duty, 12 grand, and a subdivision costs 80. Now in this area, you're looking, look, no subdivision is going to cost exactly the same, and the biggest variable is generally because of what is below the ground. Now, putting a 1 into 2 splitter at 80 grand in Queensland, you pretty much got everything covered. It'll normally come in somewhere between 70 to 80, but rarely ever less than 70,000. That's an incredibly straightforward one. So we can see our total cost at 462,000. If we sell our rear block at that conservative price that we looked at, then we've got our existing dwelling holding cost at 252,000. So and our new revaluation of the front dwelling as is, because of the smaller block, which we know is also conservative at 315. So we're looking at equity of that 63 grand of that 315 plus your deposit. So you're looking at already a loan to value ratio at around 80-20. So that you will not have to pay if you are going to go further into finance, lenders, mortgage, insurance, so on. Of course, always engage your finance professionals to do any reevaluations of equity and things like that. Okay, so also you have the opportunity to sell both. So same thing again, we've got the same figures as far as purchasing, subdivisions, your total costs. If we're selling both that, we come out with cash sales of around about 63,000. We also can break them down a lot further. Now, I've just done a rough feasibility for you guys here, just for the actual webinar, just to see some of what I would do if I was looking into going further. Now, you've got your purchase costs that we talked about, legals. Now, this is just a snapshot. Remember what we spoke about earlier. There is no exact costs you will get. This is just to give you guys an idea of the things that you will need to look at when you're going through. The driveway and curb, that won't always be there. It's a standard across most councils, just 5 grand to put a curb in. Now, if we had to put a second curb in and you put a fence around that easement going down to the second property in our example, then you'd utilise that. You'd use that 10 grand. But there'll be other times when you don't have to do anything, that the curb will already be in place. You will utilise that same easement for both properties and it won't be done. Okay, so infrastructure charges across the board in Australia, it depends on the state government. That is a non-negotiable. So they will range anywhere from 15 to 28,000 per lot, whether a dwelling's on it, whether it's vacant land, and another myriad of things in between. So you can see our total investment cost is $464,500 and your property sold. So you have the opportunity to keep them or sell them or revalue them. And that's about it as far as what you can do with the tools to be able to ascertain the viability of a deal or not. So I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me today, and really hope you have success. And I'll pass back over to Dennis. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Justin. So there's a lot of good detail in there, guys, and I hope you did get a lot out of that, whether you've done a subdivision deal before yourself or you are looking at your first deal. If you do have any questions, don't forget you can type that into the question section on that control panel there, and we'll have time to get to that in a few slides' time. So look, that brings us to, I guess, our next poll is, what is your biggest challenge with investing right now? Is it doing the feasibilities, doing the information or doing the numbers that you saw in some of these examples that Justin went through? So was it just the time it takes? Is it identifying what you should buy? Are you spending a lot of time at the moment trying to find properties through Domain or realestate.com and they don't stack up, and when you do find one, it's gone already? Is it just the confidence to complete the deal? Is it negotiating with the agent, or is it all of the above? So if you can just click on the screen, if what you find is the most challenging. And obviously, as you could see, some of that stuff that Justin went through can save you the time. It obviously helps with doing the research and getting the numbers and looking at facts, looking at the numbers itself. All right, so I've got over half just voted, so thank you very much, guys. I'll just leave that open for a couple more seconds. All right, fantastic, guys. So I'll just close that and just share that with the audience as well. So look, nearly half, all of the above. So is finding that's a challenge at the moment in terms of getting into your next deal. Followed secondly, 20% of you is really just doing the research and the feasibilities. So look, hopefully what you've seen today that Justin went through has helped with that. Identifying what you should buy, the time it takes, and the confidence to complete the deal. So look, it's all about experience. It's all about having the numbers in front of you. And I think by using Real Estate Investor, getting access to information like listing history, comparable sales, looking at actual properties that have sold on smaller blocks and finding out what they rent for if you're deciding to hold one, that's going to all help with, okay, is this the one that I should be buying? And it'll give you the confidence that, okay, whatever price you're putting forward is not going to be overpriced and you're not going to overcapitalize yourself. All right, guys, so thanks very much. I'll just hide that and we'll kick on to the next slide. All right, so here's a recent deal that one of our clients actually did using our tools to help with the research and the analysis. And this is a subdivision opportunity that they acquired up in Queensland in a suburb called Homeview. And here's the listing itself. So they were able to put in some key criteria of looking for blocks within a certain size in the area that they were interested in. So you can see here this was asking 310. This one is below the median listing for the area, so it's a 3-bedroom house. You can see in the table in the middle there that the median listing price was 366, and in the graph there as well it shows that 3-bedroom houses in that area have been increasing, well, the median listing price has been increasing since August 2014. So in a rising market, in terms of 3-bedroom houses, they were then able to do the same things that Justin had shown. They did a quick Google view just to get an indication on the layout of the property. Went through to the planning alerts link under the resources section there, found a couple of examples of other precedents or properties that have already been approved. And then using the MyValue, My Research Price Finder tool, able to have a look at the property itself to see how long it was actually on the market. So in this case here, you can see that it was actually listed for 33 days. They did try to sell it in 2008. There may have been a purchase after that, but 5th of August, 7th of August, there were updates to the listing itself. So this is going to really help with your negotiation because and your confidence, because you're going to know exactly when the property was originally listed, if they dropped the price, if they've changed the agent as well. So I have seen quite a fair few just recently. The Christmas period is a great example where a property was on the market, or properties were on the market, since September, August of 2016, leading into Christmas. Obviously, buyers drop off. Money's been spent on food, alcohol, and holidays, so they took the listing off. Second, third week back in January, the listing hits the market again, and it comes through obviously on realestate.com or Domain as a new listing. So having access to this, you can actually then work out how long it's been on the market, how much have they dropped the price, how motivated is the seller, where it might give an opportunity to negotiate further. You can then get the sales history, so actually find out when the property was last purchased for. Depending on the state, you'll be able to get the owner name details as well. Victoria, for example, is quite strict and you won't actually get any owner name details at all. My research, so then looking at comparable properties. So again, this is just reinforcing what Justin did with the search criteria quite quickly within a few clicks in a few seconds. You can see here, we just looked at land sales within this particular suburb between 400 and 600 square meters. And you can see here prices range from 203,000 as recent as 16th of June last year to the highest price there of 240, which was a little bit earlier in the year of April 2016. House valuation, so then looking at the new block at the back, doing another search to get the comparables. You can see here that there's a range of between 336 to 380. So if you be a little bit more conservative and say 300, and that may be because it's a little bit different to these 5 comparables here. So you can see there's a note down there as well that the target property was valued 36K less than the cheapest comparable, being the top one there at Goundry Drive, but a cosmetic renovation to the existing property could raise that value by 50K, as long as obviously the costs are apportioned wisely. So there's the, using the map tool, you can sort of indicate, okay, well, what am I going to, how's it going to be split? Where's the easement going to go? And just doing some quick numbers there, purchase price of $310, purchase cost of $10,000, you get a subdivision cost of $80,000, so your total upfront cost is $400. The house end valuation, $300,000, the block valuation of $220, and you got a total of $520 there. So there's a client $120,000 increase in equity on completion of that subdivision. So guys, that's the real estate investor tools, specifically Investor Search, MyValuer, and My Research that we focused on today. But really, the platform itself is all about helping you build it and manage your portfolio. So, Investor Search, where Justin and I just showed you where you can quickly find deals based on specific criteria. So obviously, you can do other strategies like renovations, dual occupancy, looking at strata titling. That's all available. MyValuer, My Research is access to Price Finder. So this is where you can really crunch the numbers and see what is actually happening in the market. You can also do a lot more things in ordering suburb reports, look at the histories going back to 1998, depending on how old the suburb is, of course. And then we have other tools like Property Analyzer, which we didn't cover today. That's more for buying and holding. If you are looking at, let's just say you split a block and you are going to keep the existing dwelling at the front, you want to work out, okay, what is the cash flow actually going to be? Is it going to be cash flow positive before tax? You can put all those numbers in from loan repayments, property expenses like rates, strata fees if applicable, insurance, maintenance, and the rental income, and it will produce a 10-year report showing you what your cash flow is going to be year in, year out. Once you acquire a property, that information can be transferred directly from Analyzer to Tracker. That's then all about providing you with reporting dashboards to show you your cash flow position and your equity position, and then you can link that into Xero, which is the accounting side. So Xero has a functionality where you can activate bank feeds and nominate as many bank and loan accounts as you want that relate to an investment property. So as soon as rental income hits your bank account, or you've BPaid or EFT expenses out, the very next day your lender or your bank will actually send those transactions across to Xero for you to then allocate what investment property it relates to, what type of expense it is, and it all syncs through into Tracker as well. So look, there's a lot of members that utilize our tools for subdivisions, but also other strategies. And we have a lot of DIPNA students that we look after. We have done so for the last few years. Really the key benefits there is to really find investment grade stock based off key metrics that are relevant to you and your deal. Understanding the true value of a property. So again, this comes back to doing the research, identifying what you should buy or what you should pass on, because it's all about understanding the true value of what a property is. And if it's overpriced and the seller's not going to drop, then sometimes you just need to move on, because if you overcapitalize and get into a deal and that's going to cost you, it can actually not only cost you in terms of dollar cents, but also time, because it means that then the equity can go backwards or stay flat for a few years and you can't do anything until that increases again. Investor tools help you perform your due diligence and feasibility studies, as you saw Justin had demonstrated. Property Analyzer, creating that 10-year cash flow and equity analysis, and then obviously making sure that you track your portfolio performance. So look, before we go into the Q&A session, just a last poll, guys. If anyone out there is interested, would you like a call just to have a quick chat about the Pro membership? We're definitely happy to give you a buzz and answer any questions that you might have that you want to just ask personally, or you want a more in-depth demo. So just if you're interested, just hit yes on screen. If you're already a member, then obviously just hit no or leave as is. And I'll just leave that open for a few seconds, guys, and we'll kick into the Q&A. We've got a few questions coming through already, so thank you very much, guys. But we are running a special as well, which I'll show you on the next screen, for DIPNA students, or I love the I Love Real Estate community, where you can actually take advantage of our casual membership. So I'll just close that off, guys. So thank you very much. For those that did indicate yes, we'll give you a buzz. All right, so we have a casual subscription special for coming along today, guys. You can actually take advantage of the casual membership at $99 per month. Usually that $99 rate is only available under a 2-year contract. So you're welcome to take up that. There is a link there which I will paste into the chat on my side, so you can just click on that. You won't be able to click on screen though, unfortunately, guys, but I'll paste that through. So if you are interested, guys, you can save up to 33%. There's no minimum commitment. You can cancel at any time once you found a property perhaps. But we do also have longer term memberships available for Dipner students for a 1-2 year period, which will be a bit cheaper than paying on a monthly basis. All right, so thank you very much.